Depression does not exist. How can I say such a douchey thing? Well, it's because I've been there and I understand it well. So I'm going to tell you how I got out of it and how you can too. I'm going to start with talking about depression in such a way that you understand that this is something that I really dealt with and really worked through myself. Because otherwise, anything I say, you're going to say, he doesn't really understand where I'm coming from, what I've been through. So first, you need to understand that I do understand what it's like to live in the depths and hell of depression. And from there, we'll talk about what depression really is and what it isn't. And understanding this is the key to getting out. So starting with me and my story. I was a pretty miserably depressed human being for most of my life. And I'd say I became acutely depressed, clinically depressed, from the ages of 25 to 35. So toward the end of it, when it got really bad, I was waking up every morning and crying for roughly an hour. That's how I started my days. It was such a bleak cloud. And if somebody were to ask me at that time, like, where did you feel it? I wouldn't even say that I felt it in my body. I'd say I felt it like up here. It was like this big, heavy, oppressive weight weighing down on me. Yeah, and I very much wanted to die, right? So that's where I come from. And the people who I counsel and talk to about depression, they get that I have been there myself. When they're down in there in the bottom. So I'm not speaking out of the side of my mouth saying, you're not talking to somebody who hasn't dealt with what you're dealing with. Now, you could say I haven't dealt with it to the degree that you have or whatever, and that could be valid. But I think what I'm going to share here has applicability to everybody who's dealing with this. So just listen and keep an open mind and see if this can help you, even if you reject it at first. So how did I get out of this miserable depression? This was a lifetime full of self-hatred, and self-hatred, that's a whole nother video, was part of it. But that was a whole much longer journey. My self-hatred continued much longer than my depression did. I can tell you that. And it's not that I don't experience depression. It's just I experience depression in a healthy way, whereas before it used to be chronic. So what brought this to mind for me, and this may be a helpful story for some of you. I had a friend today, and she said, I was so wrecked on Sunday, and I was doing everything I could think of to get out of it, from meditating to praying to cleaning up the house, everything, and nothing was working. And she said, I know, I'll go up to the mountaintop and I'll be in nature. I'll do that. And then it hit her when she was up there that the depression really wasn't depression. The depression was, the real pain of it was her fighting it. And she quoted some poem by Rumi and all that. I'm like, screw Rumi. This is literally what I've been saying to her for the past 5 years. Like every week, we do a call once a week. Or she's a good friend of mine. And I'd say like giving into it and not fighting it, right? So this key of not fighting it, that is at the core of it. And learning how to do that. And it's so difficult to give into the depression. And the reason is because it seems like it will kill you if you do that. You can't possibly give in. It's like, why would I want to give in to feeling terrible for the rest of my life? And that's a great question, but that's not how it works. I want to take a moment just to say that if you're liking and enjoying this content, please go down and hit the like button and subscribe and check the little bell too, so that you're notified when I make a new video. I'm trying to make a new video every day. Sometimes it's every other day, but as often as I can. So please go down and like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it helps get it out to other people. So I really appreciate it. So let me tell you my story and how I got out of it. So again, waking up every morning in tears, just sobbing, crying, because I was so miserable in my life and I saw no way out. And I remember lying in bed and I said to myself, I said, God does not want me lying here in bed, miserably depressed. And then a voice popped into my head and said, how do you know? And I was like, I'd never thought of that. And so I gave in to the depression. I gave into it. I stopped fighting it. Somehow I was able to surrender. And I lied in bed for like a weekend, for like several days. And I just cried my eyes out. And here's what I discovered at the bottom of that. I wasn't actually depressed. I was terrified and I was enraged. But those feelings were too difficult for me to handle. And so depression was this heavy blanket that I put on top of myself so that I didn't have to feel this rage and this terror. And so I realized very quickly that this rage and terror was from my relationship with my father. I was terrified of him growing up, and I had taken all that terror and I just pushed it down, and I was enraged that he treated me the way that he treated me. And so then I began to deal with those things and feel those feelings. Now, this was just the beginning of my journey. This was 23 years ago. And so I've learned a lot since then. And a lot of the things that I did then, I do now consciously. I kind of lucked into this back then. And it wasn't luck. It was this surrender. It was time. My system was ready to change and shift. And so is your system ready to change and shift? Is your entire life around depression ready to change? One of the things, and this is like a sucky thing to say for anybody who's experiencing depression, but it really is this incredible gift. My son's dealing with a lot of depression right now. And I can't say that to him. I can't say to him, this is an incredible gift. When are you going to unwrap it and look at the present that it is, right? And what it's trying to teach you. And when I work with clients, that's what I do a lot. It's like, really cherish this feeling, right? Which sounds absurd, but it really does work because we've never dealt with it in that way. So changing the way that we react to and deal with this depression is the key to it changing. That's what changed it for me. Instead of fighting it, I said, okay, let me give into it. I have another video that I'm going to do about surrender being the key to really all progress, but it absolutely is here. See how much you're fighting the depression. I couldn't see it. It's like I thought I was trying to get out of it, but really, I never really gave into it. And so I was never really depressed in the same way. Sure, I got down, I got sad, but I was never depressed in this pall of death that hung over me. I would be down for a couple of days, and I would allow it to be, and I would move through it. And I'd say it still shows up on occasion, that those down feelings if I'm working through something. But it's different today. I have a different relationship to depression. A big part of it is because I don't believe in depression. I believe in, I usually get those feelings when there's something that's too challenging for me to feel, right? So how can you start giving into depression? I say this to clients all the time, and I say this a lot in my 12-step work. It's like, you actually want to get to the place where you're hopeless. You want to get to the place where you're kind of falling apart, right? And you want to allow those feelings. So 5 or 6 years ago, I think it's almost 6 years now, since I had my last kind of spiritual awakening. And I was joking with a class that I was doing yesterday. It's like, it's been about 6 years. I'm due another one. For me, it's, every 5.5 to 7 years, it's time for a new, like take in and get your tires rotated. It's time for a new spiritual awakening, right? So we'll see. I'll keep you posted. So the shape of the spiritual awakening that happened to me about 6 years ago went something like this. I just had been hired to write a screenplay, so I became a professional screenwriter. And I didn't feel the way I expected I would feel. This was a 10-year journey of working on it daily to get here. And it felt kind of empty. And I realized that I could put more time into this screenwriting, and I could, perhaps achieve at higher and higher levels. And let's say best case scenario, I won an Academy Award. I realized I had a beautiful insight at that moment where I realized nothing, I could make a lot more money, and I could buy my wife the house she wanted, but nothing was going to make that difference. Nothing was going to push me over the line. I couldn't arrange the chess pieces in such a way that I was ever going to be fulfilled. And this wrecked me because my whole life had been about putting all these pieces together. I was building this perfect life. I was up every morning at 4 and working out and writing. And so the whole thing fell apart. And because achievement had been my key addiction, I no longer had anything to achieve and push for. And so I no longer had anything to fight off all the terrible feelings that I had shoved down. And so they just came upon me, right? They just all landed on my chest, and there were a lot of them, and they were terrible. And so for about 4.5 months, I just lied there. And so this is an even deeper version of that not fighting that I talked about. And so I realized one of the most important things in my life is I realized feelings are finite. And if I just allowed them, I would move to the other side of them. And so it is with depression. But this was more than depression. This was self-hatred. This was everything. These were all the terrible feelings that I had put in the closet. Now, you put everything in the closet and you open it and everything falls out and hits you on the head. That's what was happening for me. And I couldn't get out of bed for 4.5 months. I was just so miserably depressed, and I couldn't show up, and I couldn't do my job. I couldn't do anything because life seemed pointless. And so I got to the point where I was just like, okay, well, I don't have any energy to fight these feelings anymore. So it's like, all right, well, go ahead and kill me. So I allowed all these terrible feelings. I just allowed them to come in. And guess what? They didn't kill me because they can't, because they're just feelings. So unless I prematurely end my life, these feelings can't kill me. Yeah, they can feel terrible, but they can't kill me. And so it didn't seem like a gift at the time, but it was this incredible gift. And my life has really never been the same since, because I fight things less and less and less and less. And, in my one-on-one coaching, that's what I do with people, is I help them not fight these feelings. So if you want to book a free initial consultation with me, a one-on-one sort of call just to say hello and see how you're doing and see if I can help you get down to the roots of all these feelings, it's totally free. Just go down in the description below and just press the link and just book it. It's like there's no obligation, so you'd be silly sort of not to. And if that's not for you, I have a free online community called Unblock Your Brilliance. You can go there and you can check it out, and you can discover some of these principles and figure out how to start working with these intense feelings and change your life, because I live a life with so much happiness these days because of lessons like this that I've learned, where it's like I don't fight life. I don't fight a feeling. Why would I? I make friends with it. I give into it, and it passes. That's the thing. Everything that I've spent time being with and working through. And probably in the last 6 years, there's probably been 15 or so things. Well, maybe it's up to 17 now. I'm not sure. I haven't kept actual track. From body shame to compulsive overeating. There's so many things that have shifted because I've allowed these feelings to come up and come out and move through me and come to the other side. And on the other side of it, I have seen more of my own true, eternal, peaceful nature. And I wish that for you. I hope that you can experience that. So if you're struggling with depression, maybe use this as a moment, as a turning point where you say, oh, I have been fighting this, and you recognize and you see the fight that you put up against it, and you start to give into it, because you start to realize the real pain comes from fighting these feelings, not allowing them, right? So start to allow them. That's my favorite word when it comes to feelings, allow. Just be present for the feeling, allow it to be there, and don't chase it away, and don't fight it, and you will soon discover that it passes through you. And, a lot of people need support with this when they're just learning how to do it. So please reach out on the different channels that I have and get in touch with me so that you can get some support on learning how to do this. There's no better thing to learn than how to move with the currents of life. So give yourself that gift and stay tuned to my channel, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.